Hey everybody, welcome to Snagging Grass and Catching Bass. I am your host, Brian Likes to Fish. We got a great episode here for you, episode 3 with Davey Brown from Okuma. Let's get this show started. Hey everybody, thanks for tuning in tonight. Like I said, we got a great show. We got Dave Brown from Okuma. First, I want to get some shout outs. Aaron Endicott, what's up, dude? Saw him in East County Bait and Tackle today, or not today, on Saturday, right before I went fishing. Got to talk to him. What's up, Aaron? Judge is in there. We got Corey King. We got Josh Bailey. What's up, Josh? Oliver, SD Fishing. How are you, Oliver? We got Dave from Davey's World in there. Eric Klein's in there. Stephen Gage is in there. You guys are pouring in. We got David. What's up? The Grey Goose is in here. Let's go, Grey Goose. David Guzzo's in here. We got Zach Solberg in here. What's up? How's everybody doing? Todd, TV Metal Art. If you don't know who Todd is, TV Metal Art, he is the one who made the very first. You look way back here by my head. That is we didn't used to do belts. We used to do a trophy, or I guess we did one trophy, and he makes all these awesome artwork, and he makes these belts right here. So thank you, Todd. We got Jesse in there. Jesse from G Loomis in there right now. What's up, Jesse? Jesse's going to be a featured guest on our show. Works down at G Loomis. He's an engineer. Got my cat over here biting me, wants to be petted. CB and Bates is in the house. What's up? How are you? We got Sammy Prim. We got Norm in here. We got Jared Bretch. I'm sure the whole family's watching. What's up, Cash? What's up, Jared? How are you guys doing? We got everybody pouring in. I appreciate all you guys showing up. But let's go ahead and bring in our guest. Let's bring in, from Okuma, David Brown.
What's happening?
How are you, Dave?
I'm doing excited. Excited to be here. Excited for another year.
Thank you so much for coming on the show and spending the night with us talking about my favorite subject, spotted bay bass.
It's a great subject to talk about.
I think I've been talking about spotted bay bass for, geez, I'm surprised these guys still show up. I've been talking about this for like 4 years, once a week. I think I've probably done like 400 shows on this, but thank you so much for coming, Dave. We got Corey King in there too. Corey King, thank you. Corey King is the newest committee member to Spotty Bowl. Corey, thank you so much, guys. Thank Corey for putting in the time and effort behind the scenes to get Spotty Bowl going. He's going to be helping out with the side pots this year. So thank you, Corey, for volunteering that position. We do appreciate you. All right. As always, guys, if you have a question for me or Dave during this entire episode, please type the word question followed by your question, and me and Dave will try to get into answering these questions as they come up through chat. Dave, I got a question for you. Let's start this out. These guys got to get to know you a little bit. Christmas is just around the corner. You can see my hat. We're 1 week away. What's your favorite Christmas movie, Dave?
Boy, that's always a tough one. Probably, honestly, I probably like Elf.
That, to me,
easy go-to.
Elf, I watch it every time. Even if it's like halfway over and I'm going through channels on. That is like, that is old enough to be a classic now. It's probably at least, 15 years old? But it feels like a classic already. I think when it was like 2 years old, that was like a classic. I think everybody loves Elf. What's your guys' favorite Christmas movie? Mine rotates year to year. It rotates. This year, Die Hard. I don't know why, but I just watched that, and I cannot go a Christmas without seeing Die Hard.
There's always so much debate on whether that's actually a Christmas movie or not, but it is 100% a Christmas movie.
Absolutely, man. It's got the Run DMC song at the very beginning, Christmas Time in Harless Queens. I love that song. Glenn says his favorite Christmas movie is The Peanuts. Yes. That's a good one, too. I can't go a year without that. That's a good one. Poor Charlie Brown. Poor sad Christmas tree. Oliver says it's Die Hard, too. Let's go Die Hard. 2 people. Another person, Die Hard. We got Stephen Gage, Die Hard. Best of all time. All right. So everybody's in Die Hard. We got a question. Our first question of the night. Here we go. Sammy Prim says, ask Dave about his Disney obsession. Sammy Prim, we've been talking about Disney for 15 minutes before the show even started. Do you want to give any? You want to talk about any of your Disney experience really quick, just so these guys know?
Yeah, I used to work for Disney. I worked for Disney for about 10 years here in Southern California. My wife currently still works for Disney. We met there almost 30 years ago. We just got back from Florida yesterday, as a matter of fact. But yeah, we spent a lot of time with in the Disney World all around. We were talking about Tokyo just a little bit ago. That's the incredible parks. Both of those parks are fantastic. If you get a chance, got to go check those out. Those are actually not owned by Disney, as Brian, we were talking about there a little bit ago, but they are just everything that you want to be in one of those parks. The rides are incredible. The people, everybody's friendly and enjoy their job still, which is pretty cool. But yeah, we are pretty Disney obsessed.
I'm right there with you. I go to Disneyland. I do all kinds of stuff up there. So I love going to Disney also, and I'm hoping I can get to Japan one day and get to that Tokyo Sea park.
Yeah.
Okay, Dave, we're going to go right into our first segment here, and then we're going to get to talking about Spotty Bowl and some Okuma stuff. But first, we got a segment we like to call YouTube Channel of the Week. So every week, you know what? Hold on a second. I'm going to do this first. So if you want to nominate for somebody for YouTube Channel of the Week, Dave, you can nominate them on Discord by direct messaging me, Brian Likes a Fish, on Instagram or on Discord, and put up your nominations for YouTube Channel of the Week. We're looking for, it doesn't have to be local guys, but somebody that you enjoy watching, maybe has taught you some things about fishing. Doesn't have to be spotty fishing, bass fishing, offshore fishing, whatever. Just somebody that you guys want to nominate. And this week is super special. This guy was nominated, and I consider him like the OG before YouTube. This guy was doing it for me way before anybody else was doing it. And this is one of the guys that my son, when he was a little kid, we'd wake up Saturday morning, or was it Sunday, going to KUSI and watch this guy. And it was like, oh, I've been on that boat. I know those waters, which was pretty cool back then. But this is, before YouTube got big. And that is this guy. I know you knew who this was. This is Sports Fishing with Dan Hernandez. Have you ever seen this one, Dave?
Of course. Dan is a legend.
He is a legend. He's when I go to like the Fred Hall show, and I went with my son once, I've never seen my son like clam up. But when he saw Dan Hernandez, I took him up and I bought the shirt from him, and he showed the rod. My son was like, oh, that's Dan Hernandez standing there right in front of me. He's the OG. We see him on TV.
And Dan is a good guy. He does so much for the community and kids organizations and everybody else. He's just a good all-around guy.
He is. His YouTube channel, believe it or not, he has a YouTube channel where you can watch some of his old episodes. I don't know if he's on like our local channels anymore, but if not, he's on YouTube. Check out his YouTube channel. He doesn't need any he's already got a ton of subscriptions, guys. But if you've never seen Dan, go over there, like and subscribe it. It's a killer channel. He's done things like he has this segment called the Tackle Box. I used to love it when he did this live on TV. He'd go in there and he'd tell you how to set up the B-52 jig or a squid strip or a Carolina rig, or if you're going out on a boat, what setups he'd recommend. He'd call that the Tackle Box. You remember this segment? I
do. Yeah, that was a good one.
Yeah, Tackle Box. He also did Cook and Catch. So here's him making ceviche. He would have shows dedicated to do what you would do with your catch once you got it. Those were interesting. And even now, today, you can see December 12th, just a few days ago, he actually still does a live broadcast with chat, just like this show, where you can actually sit there and ask Dan questions and everything. And it's pretty cool. Whenever I get time, I try to go in there and get on the chat and see what's going on with Dan. But I think that's a great nomination for, what do you guys think? Nomination for YouTube Channel of the Week, the OG, the original, Dan Hernandez, the legend that we're going to call him.
That is a great nomination. I agree.
Okay. Yeah. I'm going to switch hats. This thing's bothering me. There we go. Now I can see. Oh, you guys saw me without a hat. That's embarrassing. It's never been seen on TV before. Mark G's in the chat. What's up, Mark? All right, so one of our sponsors this year for Spotty Bowl is Okuma. Dave is the representative for Okuma Fishing, and go ahead and tell us about what you're going to do for your side pot this year, Dave, and what you're giving away this year.
Should be fun. Last year was a great year for Okuma and Spotty Bowl. We gave away the Hakai low-profile baitcast reels to the winner of each division. This year, we're going to do something similar. We're actually going to give away the Inspira spinning reel. These reels are built specifically for what we're doing out here in Southern California. That reel that Brian's got there, that's the 2000 size. It's an all aluminum bodied reel. Puts out about 11 pounds of drag, so perfect for pitching on those docks or pilings or anything else if you're fishing your hookup baits or anything vertical, even if you're making long casts. Plenty of capacity. What's kind of unique about that particular reel is it doesn't have the anti-reverse switch on it.
Yeah, I
so,
noticed.
So you don't, less places for any kind of water intrusion or anything else on there as well. But built specifically for inshore fishing, it's a great little reel. We're excited about those things. And the cool thing is they only retail for about $99.
Yeah, that's a good price point. Anything that's rated for, is this rated for saltwater, I'm assuming?
Exactly. Yep.
Yeah, anything that's perfect for us. I just got mine. I'm gonna fish this thing through the entire Spotty Bowl season, just like I did last year with the Okuma Hakais. I fished my entire Spotty Bowl season with those, and they held out great. No problems with them. Still fishing them right now. I'd still fish them this weekend. So I'll be giving that one. And the amount of spotty fishing that I do too, I put them through, my pre-fishes, I fish 3 different divisions. So I put them through a workout, and the Hakai held up. So I'm giving the Hakai a thumbs up from last year.
Awesome. And we're about to reintroduce that Hakai too. So it's going to be a fun couple of new additions to that reel. So it'll be pretty awesome.
Cool. And a new reel that I just got from you, Dave, just got from Okuma, is this guy right here. You want to talk about your new?
Yeah, that's the new X Series low profile bait cast reel. It was an exclusive for Tackle Warehouse for a little over a year. Mm-hmm. Now it's open to the general public, but it's an aluminum framed reel, nice and light. I think you're coming in at 5.8 ounces. So if you put that on, one of the light bass type rods like the X Series bass rod, you're coming in for a full combo under 10 ounces, which is absolutely ridiculous. I think it's 11 total ball bearings on that reel, and you can cast that thing a mile. I've been fishing it for about 2 years now, from the early prototypes through current times here, and fishing everything from my A-rig to my vertical drops. They've been awesome.
I got the very first time to fish that was this weekend, slow pitch jig and a 15 gram on there. And the first thing I noticed about that reel is I always take the spool out just to look at it. I don't know what that spool's made out of, but it's like feather light, which for me is perfect for slow pitch jigging because it comes off really smooth. And if your slow pitch jig's not coming off, a lot of people will use a spinning reel for slow pitch jigging, but I'm used to, like in bass world and the largemouth is flipping. And that's what I do with that thing. So I'm used to my thumb control. So I have to use a bait caster. And in the bait casting world, slow pitch jigging, you want that thing to be as free as possible. You want it like the jig, like you just threw it in the water with nothing attached, because then it works its best. First thing I noticed is that has a super light spool, and I took all the brakes off, everything off, and it works perfectly for that.
Perfect. Yeah, you want those jigs to be as erratic and natural as possible. And any kind of tension slows that down, and you completely lose all the action on that bait.
Yeah, if you guys are using slow pitch jigs and you have your reel set up to where it's tight and stiff, that jig does not, when you throw it in the water, you'll notice it'll just kind of torpedo down slowly. And then when you loosen all your brakes, you loosen up the tension knob and then try that again. You have to be careful. You have to be good with your thumb when it hits the bottom. But you'll notice it does this motion versus just a slow torpedo down. And that's when you get, the best action. So make sure when you use a bait caster or slow pitch jig and you got it set up correctly, or the odds of your bites are going way down in percentage. Dave, I forgot to mention, I got to mention a few things. Dave is also a Spotty Bowl angler, fished Weekend Warriors last year. And how was your Spotty Bowl experience last year, Dave?
It was so much fun. I had a great time. I had a couple of really good events, ended up making it into the playoffs. I got booted in the second round.
No. What'd you face? Who are we going to blame for that?
I can't remember his name, to be honest with you. I didn't pay attention. I think I deleted him.
It was probably Sammy. Was it Sammy?
No, it wasn't Sammy. It was Sammy. He and I were going back and forth. We were hoping we were going to make it to the next round, but
maybe it was Chet.
It was a guy in a float tube. It was an Alamitos, and he pulled in like 73 inches or something on the crankbait.
Oh, wow.
It was solid. I had like 70 going out. Thought, felt pretty confident in that particular tournament, but that's all right. It was fun.
You got to watch out for those float tube guys, man. They can get into the little crevasses and those little dock areas where I'm in a big stupid boat. I don't even know why I fish this up there, but those float tube guys like Brett, they get in those little areas, man, and where we can't get. Maybe in a kayak, maybe, but when you're riding what's your kayak? What are you on right now?
I'm on the Old Town. It's the 13-foot, the big water. It's large, but I can definitely get into some spots that the boat can't. But I can't get into some spots that those float tubers are getting into for sure.
Yeah, they can get anywhere almost. But yeah, the 13-foot kayak, it's hard to get in there unless you're doing one of these where you're holding on to the boat and trying to fish at the same time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, so you can watch out for those float tube guys. I got a couple announcements. So last week, I don't know if you guys watched it, everybody watched it, but Brett was on and we had talked about basically new bays coming to LA. There's been a correction, guys, since we last talked a week ago, and we talked last week about adding Long Beach to it. And after going through the maps and trying to figure out how we're going to do Spotty Bowl in Long Beach, there's just too many gray areas, and we're kind of feeling it's too unsafe with all those ships in there and getting kayaks through in and out of there. And we have canceled Long Beach, guys. So Long Beach is no longer on the schedule. So the new schedule has been posted in the Discord. So check out the new schedule, but I'll give you the rounds right now. So the only thing that changed, I think, is round 6, maybe, if I'm right on that, Judge. But round 1 is Newport. Round 2 is Huntington Beach. Round 3 is Alamitos. Round 4 is Marina Del Rey, which is one of the new ones. Back to Newport for round 5. Round 6 is Huntington Beach. So we're doing Huntington twice. That's the new bay. And then here's the kicker. Round 7, we did this last year down in San Diego. Round 7, which is the final regular season round, you're going to get to choose whatever bay you're comfortable in. So out of all, 4 of those, you get to choose for your last round whatever bay you want, because we do what we want. That's exciting. I wonder how you know what's going to be exciting is everybody. I wonder if everybody's going to choose. I don't know. I'm so comfortable in Newport. I like Newport.
Newport's an easy one. Alamitos, of course, can put out some big fish. I mean, Huntington Harbor can put out some great fish too with those eelgrass areas that they have, but you just never know.
James tells me about Huntington Harbor in the summer in those grassy areas, yeah, and those big fish up there. So I don't know. I'm excited to see. We're gonna know where the big bass are this year up there. Marina Del Rey. Have you fished Marina Del Rey?
It's been a while, and from the kayak, it can be really good if you pop it open on Google Maps and start looking around a little bit. It's all docks. That thing is 100% docks. There's one little beach area that you can really go throw, but yeah, working those docks and having your skills locked in on working the pilings and everything else is going to be pretty key.
Well, Alamitos is kind of similar. I mean, there's mostly dock. There's a little bit of grass here and there up there, but Alamitos is kind of the same way. You're ton of docks up at Alameda.
Yeah.
So
yeah, if you can find some empty slips and get into some of those pilings that are in the back, you're gonna be doing pretty well.
I think down here. I love Mission Bay, and I think that's why my favorite bay to fish is Mission Bay, Mission Lake. I call it because it's like fishing a big bass lake. You know, it's just flat grass everywhere, cast and retrieve style. But my second favorite now is Newport. I love Newport. It's a very flat bay. There's not a lot of deep zones, but there's grass, there's pylons, there's mooring boats. You know, you got the whole gamut of whatever you want to fish up there in Newport. And it's pretty big, I guess.
Yeah, for sure. Newport, you got some of those deep water areas too, so you can definitely work that deep crankbait or the A-rig or whatever you want to throw up there.
Okay, Dave, speaking of what are we going to cast, if you guys saw the thumbnail, that is the segment tonight, is what are we going to cast? So I'm going to go ahead and start this up here, Dave. Bay fishing, what are you going to cast? Me and Dave, I'm going to show some pictures of some areas, local areas in San Diego and also up north in LAOC, some bays, and we're going to discuss, and I want you guys in chat also, when you see a situation like this, what are you guys going to throw? And, you know, Dave, you want to talk about winter fishing and summer fishing, because Spotty Bowl's 7 months. So we start out in January, but by the end, we're all the way in June. So fishing totally changes from round 1 to round 7. So let's go ahead and start this out here. You guys probably know this first picture here.
And just real quick, the other caveat there is now you got the night session too, which is going to be a whole different ball game.
Yeah. Are you a nighttime guy?
I love the nighttime.
No kidding.
Nighttime is the right time. That's the hashtag I use on those posts.
Then that is your hour. For me, I like fishing at night, but I don't want to get home at 1 in the morning. Like I told Brett last week, I said, if I'm not in bed by 10, I'm like, what the heck am I doing out right now? And I know from people that post pictures at night and from you guys up there in LA, those shore pounders that go out and usually the big, I've only had like a handful of 19s ever submitted to PB shoutouts. And everyone that's ever been submitted has been late at night. So I think if you're going for like a world record or you're a PB or something like that, probably one of your best chances is going out at night.
You do get some big ones. I've actually I probably caught all of my biggest fish during the day, but you can certainly get some big ones and get plenty of them. If you find the right dock that's loaded with them, they can all be just hanging out.
Yeah, they just during the day it's much easier at night maybe to ambush, or they're not into going out in the sun, or you know what I mean, they just live in their little hole or wherever they're living during the day, and then at night that's when they come out and do their scavenging and
Yeah,
ambush.
for sure. You just got to vary your tactics, right? If you're throwing a swim bait, go to those dark baits, work those blacks, those murdered out baits. During the day, you want those bright colors. So it's just varying the baits that you're going to use. You can still use the same techniques, chatter baits and everything else, but just put those dark tails on them, and you're going to be okay.
One of the areas I love to fish in Newport is this picture. That's why I showed it. So this is like the beach where you have not only like docks, but they have these boats that are basically anchored right off the shore. This is a bad picture because it's low tide. I took this because like, man,
Really low tide.
everybody's boats are up on the shore, but normally those boats are floating in the water. And then right in front of them, you can see a mooring ball that has a chain to a structure going beneath it. So Dave, you're going in your kayak, you see this type of fishing. What's your bait of choice to throw on these things?
Knowing that it's going to go from sand into the eelgrass just past those mooring cans, I'm most likely going to start out with an A-rig, depending how deep it is. This is pretty darn low tide, so you might only have 1 foot to 2 feet of water above that
Right.
grass. But if I can skim that A-rig above that grass, I'd probably go that direction, or a chatterbait. I'd work the chatterbait right up to the sand and then just slowly work it back up onto that grass.
Oh, chatterbait. Yeah, that's a bait that I do throw, but not very often. And I know somebody told me that won one of the Spotty Bowl championships, that's one of the baits that they were rotating through was a chatterbait. If you guys know what a chatterbait is, in the very front, just think of a jig head in the very front. It's got oh, you got one right here. Perfect. It's got a flat blade on it, and the line actually connects to that flat blade. And when it's going through the water, it's exactly what it says. It's a chatter. It gives it that blade, gives this lots of vibration out, and those fish will pick up on that vibration. And I'm like, what's that? And the aggressive spotties will come over and hammer that.
They will. Between that and the Guggen clickbait, they've got one that's got a really large head on the front there and makes a ton of racket. Those things drive the spotties crazy. But, if you're looking for something that's a little bit more subtle, like we talked about, I think on the last episode, was the scrounger head.
Oh, I love the scrounger. I did a whole show once on the scrounger. Scrounger head has a cup. There it goes. Yeah. See that cup right there, guys? And that, as it goes through the water, makes the back of the bait kick gives it like a lot more action. That's a bait I don't see very much in the bays, at least down here in San Diego. I don't hear a lot of people talking about scrounger baits. I think they sleep on that bait.
That's the bait you don't want to talk about.
Oh, yeah.
During tournament season.
Just show it on Snagging Grass shows.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, with that, with the big fluke on the back there, and you're pretty much set. They're so quiet and subtle, but they have so much action on them. It's crazy.
It's got the up top hook too. It doesn't have dangling hooks, so it goes through grass good.
Yep.
And going back to that chatterbait though, there's a whole line of those. The guys that are really in those chatterbaits, they make like a high-end chatterbait. I think Z-Man makes it, and it's not plastic, but some kind of different material than metal on the front. It's expensive bait, but the guys that are into chatterbaits really get those things dialed in.
So chatterbait is by Z-Man. Z-Man is chatterbait. So there's they own that patent on that. It might have just ran out, but there's a couple other baits that are starting to make something similar to that now. But they have to be a little bit different. But yeah, those, like this particular one I just showed, this actually has a swinging. This actually is a chatterbait, but it's got the swinging ball head. If you can see that there.
I do.
That gives it a ton of extra action as well. Plus that weight. Hi, Benji Kim.
He says, "What's up? Woo! What's up, Benji King? How are you? Good to see you in chat. Carl's box in chat too. What's up, Carl? Let's go to another picture here. That's some good advice right there. What I would throw on that, I guess, summertime, I'm an A-rig guy. That is a scary place to throw your A-rig to the shore, though, because if you get snagged up on one of those chains, you might get it off, but it's hard to position yourself to the backside. So I'm a little leery. Maybe throw it parallel, like with the shoreline, and go right in front of those. But throwing the A-rig up on there, you're risking your biscuit on that. So I mean, you got 65-pound braid. Usually you can break them off. The hook usually gives out, but that's the only thing. I would probably throw, same as you. I'm going to throw an A-rig in the summer, but I'm going to throw it parallel, not up on the beach. And I'll probably be throwing my cool bait. Or you know what I really like to throw there is just a standard ball jig head. I'm talking just a 3/8, maybe an owner ball jig head, the most basic fishing thing there is. I'll throw that thing all the way up almost into the sand and drag it in from there. Start out pretty fast to get it up to where I want it to be, and then just set my pace right through the grass right there. 3/8 ball jig head with a curly tail grub. I know it's nothing. It's not as fun as a chatterbait. It's not as fun as a scrounger bait, but don't sleep on the 3/8 ball jig heads.
Yeah, for sure. That last picture, though, the thing that interests me in that photo is that dock that's on the right side there.
Yeah, you know that. Oh, you know what? Is that the teddy bear house right there?
Could
I think
be.
that is. I think that behind there is the teddy bear house. And if you fish Newport, you know what that house is. So,
but paralleling that dock right out of that grass can be really good.
oh yeah. Like I said, this is a bad picture because it's that was like a 3 foot below tide or something right there. But
that's a pretty rough one.
Same conditions right here. This is just, I think this is Mission Bay. I was going to show this for shore pounders because I'm also a shore pounder. When I'm looking at a spot like this, I'm going to be over here on this point right here where this water's coming through right here. If I was in a cast from here, you can also see a little deeper water over there if you look at the water right there. But this is a hard spot in the sand because you're very shallow from shore. If you're in a kayak, you probably wouldn't fish this area. But when you're fishing the shore division, you only have so many choices. But I want to show this because it's a point. And anytime you're fishing from shore, if you can fish a point and get that thing out in the deeper water as far as you can, that's a good place to start from shore. Do you do any shore pounding, Dave, or are you strictly from the kayak? And
mostly from the kayak or from the boats, but looking at this here, I'd work that deep drop off area, and I'd probably work it with a crankbait, something super shallow, like in that 1 to 2 feet on the shallow side of that, and let it work off that ledge.
Yeah, it's super clear water right there. Man, I don't know. I would probably look at this and keep going, but from shore, if that's my only choice, I'm going to that point. But super clear water, 1 foot deep, maybe. Yeah, I'd probably stick with my ball jig head cool bait. Maybe even a drop shot right there. Because if you get lucky and drag a drop shot through some of that eel grass, might get lucky on that. I just want to show this because it's funny. I was up there a lot. You know when you're heading in Newport to, you may have seen this boat.
I do remember that guy. Yeah.
I don't know why I have to show this guy's misery, but I think I was cruising in with you, and if you're heading into Newport at the Newport Dunes boat launch ramp, there's like if you guys launch from Newport Dunes in a low tide, be careful because off to the left it looks like it's deep, but I'm telling you guys, it's like a foot deep, maybe 2 feet deep. And
that dude did a lot of sitting around for about 6 hours to get that boat back off of there.
I didn't include the guy, but you look off to the right, there's a little island, and he was sitting on that island. You're talking when high tide comes out, you might get that thing off and drag it off. But yeah, you're sitting for a while. But if you guys are leaving Newport Dunes boat launch ramp, just be careful. Stay to the right. It's marked with buoys, but stay to the right, especially anybody that's new. I'm like the only guy up there with a boat that doesn't know that area, though. Very good. Most of these guys all know that. But I thought I'd share that. Okay, here's Mission Bay. My favorite bay to fish. And I don't know how familiar you are with it. That's SeaWorld there in the background. And if you were to turn around 180, there's that bowling pin island right behind me. And what lies beneath this area right here is this special stuff right here. So I love this spot right here, especially like this. If I'm giving you guys some advice on winter time and you cannot find a fish, you've tried the docks, you've tried all your favorite spots, you're just trying to get, you're probably not going to get a very big fish here, but if you're just trying to get your 5 fish, head on over to the grass and put in some time over there because there's fish in this grass. Especially when it's clear in the winter like that, they don't like to be out in full sun. So they'll be just tucked into this little grass, into a shade, hiding. And we did a show a long time ago about spotties and what they eat. And we had all the scientific facts, and they cut open spotties, which I don't approve, but they cut open to see what they were eating. And the spotty's diet, believe it or not, is not what you would think it was. Because if you look at this next photo, see all that bait fish swimming around, you think, okay, they must just only eat bait fish. But that only consists of about 10% of their diet is bait fish. Most of their diet is the razor clams and anything else they can scavenge around off the rocks or off the bottom. The scientists said that's razor clams, little crabs, crustaceans, that kind of stuff was what spotties mainly eat. So that type of stuff is going to be in the grass. So it makes sense that when the bait aren't around in the winter, that's where they would be. They would be in there scrounging for food, harvesting whatever they can eat. I don't know. Maybe they're chewing on that grass. I don't know. But
That's why that red crawfish is such a great pattern on some of those crankbaits as well. And dragging that through the grass, if you can get it through, it's a great bait, great pattern, great color.
It is. Almost any bait you can keep down on the bottom like that is going to be a good option for that. And with the crankbait, you can, with your speed, if you're good at it, you can keep that stuff right above that grass too, which is right where you want to be. Something to look at for grass too when you're fishing through grass is if you're pulling up dead brown grass or dead black grass, is probably a ghost town in there. The pictures that I'm showing you right here, it's this bright green grass. When you're fishing through the grass, that's when you're pulling the grass up with whatever you're fishing. Take a look at it. If it's bright green, clean, you're in a good spot. If it's brown, dead, black, oily, whatever, probably a ghost town. Leave that spot and go look for the good grass.
But if you're asking what to throw in there in both of those spots there, I love that between the Fiesta Island and the bowling pin. I love the spinner bait, just regular double-bladed spinner baits, as well as that chatter bait through there. And of course, off to either side of the pin in that deeper water, throwing the A-rig has always been pretty phenomenal for myself anyway.
Spinner bait's like one of the most weedless baits you can fish too. Like you can get that virtually right in that grass and not snag it up on a bunch of stuff. The spinner bait has its weed guard on the bottom, and it's basically shaped like a giant weed guard with a hook in it. So it'll go over grass, rocks, whatever. And the spinner bait puts out such a good vibration. If you're not fishing that correctly, like you're just burning it in, your rod will be vibrating so much. It teaches you cadence like the spinner bait does. You'll know once you get the feel of it, if you're reeling too fast or too slow because you're not feeling any of that vibration. But you'll get good with the spinner bait as a trainer bait to learn your cadence just by the feel of the rod. If you're fishing braid and a fast action tip.
Yeah, perfect.
Aaron Endicott says working out knee deep water. You guys, and like I said, you guys, what are you guys actually fishing here too? Captain Adobo in the chat. What's up, Captain Adobo? If you got any questions also for Dave about Okuma or anything else, you guys have him on here live. Now's the time to answer or ask him any questions. Did you just get back from a fishing show right now, Dave? I know you're all around the country.
No, actually, I was in. My wife and I were in Norway for a couple of weeks, and Sweden for vacation, and then we just got back from Disney World. But no shows recently. I was out at Sharkathon in Texas about a month and a half ago or so. That was a really cool event. Sharkathon. It's a land-based shark tournament.
Wow, no kidding.
Really cool. Different.
In Florida, I'm assuming.
That was in Texas, out of Corpus Christi. These are where the guys get these giant four-wheel drive trucks, and they can drive up and down the beach, and they've got the huge rack on the top, kayak on there, and then up on that rack, they've got 20 rods set up where they can send all their baits out. It was actually really amazing to see. What's really cool about that is these guys have got 20 rods set up with baits spread out. They're fishing sharks, and in between all of that is little kids swimming.
And when they hook up, all right, and the guy's got the fighting belt on, he's leaning back, does everybody kind of like spread out?
They do. So they'll usually, those sharks aren't making big runs generally. They're just kind of pulling. So they're just kind of horsing them in. They're using like an 80 size or a 130 on the big lever drag reels. So those when they actually hook up, the kids will generally come out of the water, but it's interesting. Kind of like sending a bait out. The only way you can actually do it is you can put it on a kayak. You can't drone it. You can put it in a kayak and paddle it out and drop your bait, or you can swim it out. That's the only ways you can put your bait out.
How many people are swimming out with a giant hook and a bait?
If they don't have a kayak, those guys are putting the line through their teeth, and they're swimming out there, dropping it past the second break and calling it good.
Yeah, that's the great thing about being an angler. I mean, I'm a bass fisherman, but man, there's so many different styles out there. Sharks, offshore, inshore, bay fishing, fresh. I mean, just take your pick, guys. Okay, so let's get back to our topic here. If I can figure out how to operate my screen.
Real quick, I see Triple Beards is asking about the Nomad travel rods. Don't know if you checked those out, the new Voyager series of travel rods. We've got the Guide Select swim bait rods, as well as the Voyager surf rods. That took the Nomad place of all those rods. We actually sold the Nomad name to the Nomad Bait Company, so we can no longer use it. But basically, it's the same blank on the Voyager with a few upgraded components. So if you haven't checked those out, check those guys out.
I'm always looking for a good travel rod.
They're fun. For those of us in the industry that travel a lot and you're near water, we've got travel rods with us all the time. And the new ones with the big European spigot ferrules, they feel just like a one-piece rod.
I'm talking about a rod I just keep in my truck when I want to just pull
Yeah.
over and go. You know what I mean? Like my work truck or my truck where I'm just cruising around and I'm like, oh man, I got 15, 20 minutes here. Let's go ahead and get 5 casts in. So I'm gonna check into that with you.
Yeah, we've got everything from like light trout rods to the heavy surf and boat rods.
Triple Beard says he caught a 7-foot sandbar shark on one. Wow.
Nice. Awesome. Good catch right there.
That'd put a fight. Okay, next subject for spotted bay bass is super popular with everybody, and this is dock fishing. Pretty much any of our harbors, any of our bays we go to have tons of dock fishing. We've talked about dock fishing. Here's San Diego Bay, for instance. We got just endless. It seems like endless docks of. All right, here's one of my favorite docks fish. This is Mission Bay, and when I'm looking for dock fishing and I'm coming into the docks, I'm always looking for the what do you call it? The end cap. I'm gonna call it the end cap, the dock on the very end. A lot of my fish have came out of the in spot. So if you're traveling, let's just say into it, but you're not planning on turning into the docks, I would always cast on the in spot pylons. What are you throwing when you see a dock like this, Dave?
So I'm going to either throw like a 10 gram or 15 gram vertical jig just straight down in that piling, or a hookup bait even. Like some of the any of the like underspins are going to work out perfect for this as well, with a little tail, like a little 3-inch, 2.5 or 3-inch tail. Just drop that down. But that's usually my go-to when I'm pulling up on these end caps. But I'll also, like, I will pull up to the left of this photo and I'll make a long cast to the right, and I'll drag my A-rig along the entire length of that dock. A lot of times they're just kind of hunkered down in there in the shaded side.
Yeah, I mean, you think that's just a big roof. It's just a big shaded cover. So they, like you said, they may not necessarily be on the pylons. The odds are they are. But if you're throwing parallel with that whole dock, you're covering all the shade underneath that. And sometimes when you pass right by,
there's always all kinds of structure under there. People have dropped stuff. You'll find all kinds of weird things that you'll hook into. But those spotties can definitely be hunkered down on anything down there.
In this particular area, I was fishing my A-rig. And with the A-rig, I fished 65-pound braid. And that stuff is just almost like you could anchor your boat with it. It's very hard to break. Usually a hook will break or the A-rig breaks unless it gets. And I hooked into a dock cart, that they put their stuff on and docked it out. And I'm not kidding. That A-rig and that braid was so strong. I had to reach down and pull it up. But I was able to pull up a dock cart on 65-pound braid. And that thing had been down there for a while. It was all I felt bad because I pulled up structure. But I pulled that thing up. I didn't want to bring it to my boat, but people were looking. And I didn't want to just throw it back in like a litter bug, So I set that thing on the back corner of my boat, threw it away later. But
yeah, geez, that's pretty cool. Yeah, new PB on the dock cart though. That's kind of cool.
It was. But it's amazing what 65-pound braid can do nowadays. I mean, this thing was just covered in. It was first of all stuck in the sand and covered in barnacles. Still able to pull it up off the bottom.
That is pretty amazing. What's funny though, we talk about braid versus fluorocarbon or monofilament or whatever else, but even that 65-pound, if you get it near some of those barnacles, that stuff will snap like nothing.
That's why we're all using leaders. So I like braid because it does no memory and it casts smooth, goes on. It's, for what it is, like a 65-pound. Only time I use 65-pound braids on my A-rig. That's it. Everything else is 20-pound, 10-pound, lightweight stuff. It's super thin. And it casts and it seems to last the entire season. And I don't have to worry about my braid. But if you don't have a leader, you're right. I did this. I have this machine where I test abrasion. And I did some shows with that. And braid, I would crank this machine and braid would break after it had sandpaper, would break after about 2 cranks. And an equivalent, like a 20-pound fluoro or mono, would be about 15, 20 cranks, just to show you that braid has zero abrasion.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing.
Yeah, so that's one of the reasons why we're fishing later. And, all right, let's talk about setups on this. So when you're fishing your slow pitch jig or your hookup bait or your scrounger bait, what's your go-to like rod and reel setup?
So, I'm sitting in a kayak, so I like the longer rods. I like, I think what I'm fishing right now is a 7'11". It's one of our heavy rods, and I'll fish that with that X series bait cast reel. This is for my vertical jigs. And the reason I do that is when I actually hook into a fish and it buries me, I want to be able to reach around the bow and get it to the other side, so I'm not fighting it under the boat. And same thing, like if I'm out chasing yellowtail on the kayak or something as well. But I want to be able to get it out, or if I'm paralleling and I want to be able to drop, I don't have to be right on the piling. I can actually just drop that bait as close to the piling as possible.
And you said 7.3 or 7.6?
That one's 7'11".
7-Eleven. Okay. So
Yeah,
yeah, when you get into those big rods too, you got a lot more parabolic. Fast action tips though, I'm sure, but you can get a lot of action out of those. And that when you hook into that spotty, sometimes that very first second is the whole fight, because it's a matter of turning its head and getting away from that pylon or getting away from wherever it was hiding in that hole. So with that long rod, you can kind of get its head around. And
yeah, exactly. And if you figure, if you just give it a regular lift with that much rod, you're pulling 5 or 6 feet away from that dock just in the lift.
Yep. Jesse says, Brian, do you remember when I caught a beach umbrella on the umbrella rig? I do remember that. I think you sent that into PB shoutouts, if I remember right. Your PB umbrella. I think Jesse was fishing. Where were you, Jesse? I'm gonna guess, and I think it was up north, maybe. And he fished right after a big rainstorm. Have you ever fished Alamitos after a rainstorm?
Yeah, Alamitos, Newport. Of course, we used to coin it Pooport, because it would always be some sort of sewage overrun when we'd have those tournaments up there.
I fished. I've probably told this story way too many times, but I fished where that aqueduct comes out into Alamitos, and I'm telling you, it was like fishing like lily pads. There was so much trash just getting my bait into the water through the couch cushions or the floating tents or whatever was in there, everything, water bottles. But man, after a huge rain, watch out, man. It's trash city. Yeah. Jesse says he was fishing Huntington Beach. Okay. When he caught the umbrella. All right. All right. So dock fishing, probably the most popular in Spotty Bowl. This is something I look for right here. If you are fishing slips and you come up on an open slip with shade like this is kind of the golden egg to me right here. If you can get in there a little deeper when a boat's not in there and cast into that and get in a little deeper than if that boat was actually parked there. Sometimes I think that maybe that fish that lives there under that boat is maybe still in there.
Yeah, for sure. First I'd fish that piling to the left of that piling, between the boat and the piling, and then I'd work my way in and work that left corner of that dock, and then kind of work my way back out. But yeah, any of that shaded side there is fishy for sure.
Here's a photo. That's my son right there on a kayak. But here's a photo I want to show with something that I do. I think this is Newport. Is I'll hit all these pylons. I'll just go along. I won't even stop. I'll either slow pitch jig or drop something on these pylons right here. And then when I get about 6 into them, I'll stop, turn around, and then cast backwards and parallel, because sometimes there may not be into that slow pitch jig or into your hookup bait or whatever you're dropping vertically. They may just seen it and they're like, I've seen that a million times. But if you double back and throw it behind you and then throw a cast and retrieve bait along the bottom of those pylons, it's like you're getting a 2-for-1 special. You're going to hit all those pylons, turn around, cast it backwards, and then go right in front of the face of those. And that's a technique I try to. Sometimes I get lazy and I don't do it. But when it seems like when I do that, it's easier for me to find a pattern. I'll figure out if they're hitting the slow pitch jig or they're hitting whatever bait I'm throwing behind me, and trying to find a pattern of what they're exactly buying. Sometimes they want the jig, sometimes they want the hookup bait, sometimes they want the crankbait. And to win Spotty Bowl, you kind of have to find the pattern of what they want that day.
It's all about that day. It's all about that 7 hours or 8 hours. You got to figure it out quick and figure it out. I like the parallel the dock after pitching a bunch of the docks. That's a great advice. What I find is that almost a kayak length from those pilings out into the deeper area, you're either going to have grass, you're going to have a little bit of a drop off where that channel begins. A lot of times those spotties are hanging right at the edge of that channel. So if you do make those casts along, either paralleling right along the edge of the back of those boats or even out a little bit and working that edge, it can be pretty phenomenal there as well.
Next up, we got just a pier. So this is San Diego Bay. And guys, I got this because I was watching the live cam. A lot of these bays have a live cam where you can go on YouTube, just type in San Diego Bay live cam or Newport live cam, and you can just sit there and watch the bay. Or if you're thinking about going down and you're like, what's the weather like? You can actually just go on almost all these bays now have some kind of live cam. San Diego Bay has a rotating one where it has this spot, then it has over by the midway, then it's over by the front of the jetty where the sub pen is. So you can take advantage of a live cam. If you're thinking about going down there and you want to see what the weather's like, you can go on there the morning of and see if it's foggy, windy, whatever. But I took this picture from the live cam. That's a pretty famous dock in San Diego Bay. It's right in front of the Bali High. And I just happened to see some of our club members kayak fishing, and I took the picture on live cam, sent it to them.
Perfect.
Docks like that, guys, look for docks like that out in the middle of nowhere. These fish, made that right out in front of this specific spot is all grass. It's a 15-foot deep area, all grass, so fish your grass. But during the day, those fish may come out of that grass and hunker under a spot like this too. So maybe the morning bite might be out there in the grass. And then once we come up to full sun, definitely check under all these structures like this, especially the docks and by the grass. Next up, now here's some of our buddies up there in Alamitos. So I give a shout out to some of these guys up there. There's Carl on the pond prowler. Have you seen his pond prowler yet?
No, but that thing's legit. I like it.
No. So Carl had a big boat like me, and he was in the same arena of thinking, oh man, what am I doing this big boat and spotty bowl? So it's like it's not an advantage. You think a boat would be an advantage, but when you get in a place like Alamitos, a boat's a big disadvantage, especially when it's windy. So he got rid of the big boat and he went to this little pond prowler, and he's got a little tiny outboard on the back and a little trolling motor up front, little fish finder. I think those things are pretty inexpensive at Bass Pro Shop. So that's a pretty cool cruising around the bay boat right there.
That's an awesome cruising around the bay boat for sure.
Yeah. Sammy says Carl cruises. Yeah, he does. And it's easier to launch too, than a giant boat. And okay, here we go. This is a special spot, which is mooring boats. Newport's kind of known for that. This is San Diego Bay has some of these too. Mission Bay, a few of them, but really the mooring boat areas, guys. If you're fishing spotties and you don't know what a mooring boat is, basically the boat that are stored out on the water. They're there full time. They're hooked up to a chain. In front of that chain is a big buoyant ball thing, and that ball is attached to a big chain, or a rope that goes down into the water, which is attached to a concrete block or an engine block, something structured down below it. So if you're fishing the mooring boat areas, I have to have a better picture of this. No, I don't. If you're fishing the mooring boat areas, if you look at the buoyant ball it's hooked up to, look at that chain going down, and where that connects is where you want to be. You want to slow pitch on it, or you want to cast and retrieve in front of those. Do you fish that in Newport? Of course you do. I don't know why I'm asking you that, but
I do. I like the moorings. I usually don't do it first thing in the morning, but that's where I'll end up. And I love the deep crankbait. If it's in that 17 to 25 foot range, got some of those big dredger deep diving crankbaits, and just pull those things down along the bottom and just let it dig and bounce. And most of the time you're going to get bit somewhere along there. I actually myself, I don't fish the mooring cans themselves too much. I know people do. I see Chad and those guys just crushing it out there. But I love like Mission Bay was always a good one. San Diego Bay too, but or I guess more San Diego Bay. But fishing the A rig, like Ty Ponder and I used to go do it quite a bit. Some of those real far back areas where it's like a constant 15 feet, mooring cans everywhere.
You showed me a bait before the show. You want to show that thing off? Because I used to fish this a decade ago, and it sparked a memory. Describe that thing.
So it's just something I've been tying here for a little bit. It's just a little double rigged swim bait. It's got a swivel up top there, so the guy can actually just kind of spin. It's each one is also swiveled up, but it's I think these are 1/32 ounce or 1/8 ounce maybe, and it's a 3-inch tail. But the thing's pretty cool. When it swims, it actually swims on top of each other. And when it hits something, it will rotate around. So they're swimming, and one bounces and hits, it'll actually just rotate. And then it hits, and then it'll just bounce back. It's pretty cool. But around any kind of that grass or soft sand or anything else, I mean, they're pretty cool. They're a lot of fun. And it's always fun too when you make something and you catch some fish on it.
Oh heck yeah! We used to make that and call it the lake rake. Cool Baits used to make those and sell those and call them the lake rake. We stopped making them a long time ago, but I fished that before I ever fished an A rig. That was like the double. I wasn't quite into A rigs yet, but I was into fishing that, and that thing works pretty. And you know what's funny is now you see some new A rigs coming out that are made out of like clear material, like heavy clear material, similar to that. So maybe that's making a comeback here. Maybe we're gonna be fishing.
Could be. It's one of the ones I usually don't talk about either, but it's it's kind of like throwing that scrounger. It's unique and it gets bit and it's quiet. If it's like one of those real kind of clear water days where they're going to get spooked, it's pretty cool to just drag that through the areas. And then you showed some of those dock areas where it might get into some deep inside the dock. It's kind of shallow and it starts getting deeper. Working that thing, just paralleling those docks on the inside there, it's pretty good.
And you get the 2-for-1 sometimes on that. And spotty bowl, you know what I mean? You get the 2-for-1. And That's one of the setups I love to fish is the double rig, which is a swivel with like a 30-inch line and then a 24-inch line with two baits that usually like a half ounce and a 3/8.
Yeah.
So more often than not, if you find the bite, you'll pull up double. So sometimes you get the mama and you get the baby.
Exactly. Yeah, that can be really good. I only had a couple doubles this year, even on the A rig. I get a lot of doubles on the calico bass and sand bass, but for spotties, for some reason, I don't see a lot of doubles.
It's pretty rare. It happens, but it's pretty rare. Calicos, on the other hand, yeah, you can get doubles on those all the time, it feels like. But
I've had a couple 4 and 5 fish A rig pulls where it just keeps getting heavier.
You got a 5-pack calicos, I'm assuming.
5-pack, yeah, 5-pack out of Dana Point.
I think three is my biggest. I think I've got 3 spotties and 3 calicos. I've never got a 4 or 5 though. You keep trying that. But yeah, that'd be crazy. I think I was on fishing with the owner of Cool Base, Justin, and he got a 4-pack on an A rig on that. Brian, I got a question here, Brian. What line size do you recommend for the double rig? You want to go ahead and answer that first, and I'll follow up.
Yeah, if you're talking like the hookup bait double rig, if you're doing that thing on my main line, I'm usually fishing 12 to 15 pound. And then some guys like to go 8 pound, but like that 12 to 15. And then on the actual leaders, like that 24 and 32 inch, like Brian mentioned, on those, I'll usually fish something a little bit lighter, like an 8 or 10 pound, just because you get the action of the bait. On this particular double rig, I'm just fishing it like an A rig. So I'll fish my 15 or 20 pound fluorocarbon leader on that.
Almost exact same answer. I don't go with 6 pound on that. If I'm doing single bait, these guys would probably think I'm crazy, but I do fish really lightweight stuff. I would probably do an 8 or a 10 pound on it, depending on how heavy the bait. If it's just a 1/4 ounce or 3/8, 8. If I'm going a 1/2 ounce, I'll probably go with a 10 pound. But I would recommend a 8 or 10 pound, and then at least 20 pound braid hooking up. So the 20 pound braid hooks directly to the swivel, and then you have either have a 3-way swivel or you have a sliding swivel in front of that. So the braid hooks to that, and then the 2 leaders hook to the swivels. 24-inch, 30-inch. That's probably pretty standard. 2 different lengths, so you get them at two different distances apart.
Exactly, and the lighter the leader, you're gonna get more action on those baits, as I mentioned. But those baits get expensive too. So
it's hard to convince people to go to the 8 pound. They think 8 pounds. They're thinking, oh my gosh, it's like a hair off your head. It's super thin. Yeah. It's gonna break easy. But with my experience, if you're 15 or 8, no matter what, if you hit that pylon, it's going to cut either of them. Yeah. But once you start fishing that, remember we're fishing for a 1.5 pound fish here too. But when you fish that 8 pound with the 20 pound braid or 10 pound braid, even when you start to get the feel of it's first of all, it casts really smooth. That's the first thing you'll notice. You're like, oh man, I can just flick this thing and it goes a mile. You're not like whipping it like you would with the heavy stuff. So you're flicking it out there, and then when it hits the water, you're going to notice how much more sensitive it is. And it's hard to get this out of your brain that you don't need 25 pound mono to do this. But I would say get a lightweight setup like this. This is my lightweight ultralight setup now. Get a lightweight setup and just give it a shot. Give 20 pound braid. If you're scared to do it during the tournament, at least go out and try an 8 pound leader, even 6 pound leader, and see what you think. Just give it a shot. I know Chad.
Really you're fishing for 5. You're fishing for 5 fish. You can't win if you don't get bit.
Yeah. And with spotties, the first 2 seconds of the fight is where you win or lose. Normally, they pop off sometimes. Coming up, they may throw the hook, but most of the time, if you're going to lose one, it's like right when they grab it. If you can't get them out of the structure. For us kayakers, it's I've got the rod over the head, but the net's over on this side. And you're trying to finesse that thing into the net and pop. I've given up on nets. I just bounce. I've lost too many. So most people probably use a net. I've given up on it. I've got first of all, I'm standing up, so I have the ability to kind of just lift. Yeah. But when I can see color and I see it about 3 feet below the water, I don't wait till it's up at the surface and then try to yank it out. I get this momentum. I'll see him, and then he's about 3 feet deep, and then I start my lift. So he's coming out of the water like Shamu then, and then I just bounce it into the boat. I've had too many bad experiences with the nets, especially in the largemouth world. Yeah. The spotties, as we know, they're all pretty darn prickly. Bouncing those things into your lap is not what you're looking for either. No. Yeah, we were talking about that last week. All of our hands, we're spotty bowls over, so all our hands are like, nice and soft and ready to go. But when spotty bowl comes around, watch out. Yeah, exactly. Salty Dangler. I think he's caught the biggest fish in spotty bowl history, by the way. It says boat flipping 100% easier than in a kayak flipping. So Salty Dangler is my SBS partner, so he sees me bouncing. But yeah, I'll agree because I'm in a stand position in a boat, and I've got like a giant, bathtub here to just flop them wherever I want into. So yeah, maybe I've got a different opinion. All right, so San Diego Bay, we are lucky to have San Diego Bay. One of the things that we have here is a deep channel. Something, I guess Long Beach up there is kind of a deeper bay. But San Diego Bay, we have water that's all the way to 60 feet deep in some areas. We've got this really cool deep channel. And sometimes, believe it or not, those spotties are down on the bottom of that deep channel. Deep channel fishing. Do you, since you're up north, you probably don't got a lot of experiences. Do you ever come down here or do you ever go to Long Beach and fish the deep channels?
So I would always bring the kayak when it was for the Del Mar show, for the Fred Hall, Bart Hall, now Del Mar show, and we'd go fish it in the mornings every year. And we do a lot of long lining A-rigs in the deep channel. Don't do it as much anymore, but I'd probably take that drop shot and go work some of those areas.
When he's talking about long lining, you basically set your kayak up and you're just drifting. You're going to be drifting with the current, and you throw your lure upstream, let it hit the bottom, work it, then open your clutch, float it, work it, open your clutch. That way you're not constantly bringing it up off 50 feet, recasting it, doing that over and over and over again.
And it's definitely not a tournament technique, but it's effective.
It's not a tournament technique. We allow working the drift. So as long as you're working, you're not letting out half your spool. We don't allow that. So we don't allow you to drop a bait in spotty bowl and let half your line out or you're 200 yards out and then wind her in. We do allow working the drift, which is while you're drifting, casting, let it hit the bottom and work it, let it loose a little, work it, let it loose. You're allowed to do that, but you're not allowed to let half your line out. Let's see here. We got any questions here? Yeah, we do here on the bottom. Javi says, do spotties hang out in the channel more during the summer or the warm water seasons? My answer to that in San Diego Bay is they're in there all the time. I'm going to show a picture here real quick. If you're lucky enough to have a fish finder or some kind of sonar on your boat, this is what you're looking for in the deep channel. Anything. It doesn't matter what it is on the bottom. If there's something down there, if there's a variance in the depth, if there's a little rock down there, there's a plant, there's a one of those markers, the green buoys and red buoys, you're looking for something that has anything. This is a good example of a structure. And if the tide is going from left to right, most likely those fish are going to be on the right-hand side. So if you can find a structure like this, I think they always hold fish in these deep areas. I don't think it matters what time of the year. Sometimes they're in the front, though, because remember, in San Diego Bay's long, sometimes they're in the front up by the jetty, and sometimes they're in the back, which is back by the Coronado Bridge. So you have to find out where they're at, what time of the year. But I think deep channel is always a good spot.
A deep channel is definitely good. I'd say up in LA, when you're fishing this and you find this kind of structure, it's usually sand bass that you're going to get on.
Yeah.
More so than spotties.
Me and Salty Dangler were in an SBS tournament for sand bass or whatever, all three species. I'm not kidding you. Every fish we caught was a sculpin up there. And sculpin fight. We're like, oh, it's a good one. We're in a big tournament here. We're like, oh, awesome. And it would have been an awesome day. But when you're catching, double rig sculpins and you're bringing up sculpin after sculpin, you're like, what is going on? I don't know what's going on in Long Beach, but there is a lot of
There are a lot of sculpin.
Yeah, a lot of sculpins down in there. So
also, if you don't want to boat flip onto your lap on a kayak.
Sculpin?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, don't do that.
I have a fear of all those type of rockfish because I know the rockfish, but I don't know which ones are poisonous or which ones aren't. So I just consider they're all poisonous. When I see a big bright red fish come up, I'm like, nah. I literally just hold it over the boat with my pliers and shake it off.
It's a safe way to do it.
Yeah, I don't trust any of those guys. Have you ever? Oh man, what's that? It's something. What's that little shrimp that has the punch? What the heck is the name of it? What's it in chat? You guys know it. Not mantis. It's something like that. Oh, come on, Cal. What is it? Salty Dangler. What's that? Anyway, it looks like a big long shrimp. And if you ever catch one of these, it's got two little claws on the front. And there's a whole National Geographic episode about this thing having like the strongest mantis shrimp. There it is. Thank you, Alex Norton, champion right there. The mantis shrimp. If you guys ever catch Google an image of a mantis shrimp, because if you ever catch one of those, don't try to handle it because they actually have a punch that could break your finger. I've seen videos of them where people flop them onto their boat deck and that thing will punch and it'll actually dent the fiberglass in a boat. But
yeah, it's crazy. Those things are strong.
yeah, watch out for those. Don't flop one of those in your lap. Trust me, those things are brutal. And the last up is the bridges. Let's see up there. Yeah, I guess Alamitos has some bridges. Newport, doesn't have a bridge as a ferries, right? So no bridges in Newport, Alamitos. Do any other bays up there have bridges?
Since you don't know about the Newport ones, I won't tell you about them, but there are a few bridges.
Oh yeah, the Newport one is the divider for the no fishing zone, right?
So there's the PCH bridge.
Side, yeah, one side you can fish, one side you can, or I'm not sure the rules on that. Maybe you can fish that whole bridge, but let me think. Oh, there's a bridge way up north, but it's really low. It's kind of it's like some of those times I can't get under it if it's high tide, I want to say. I'm trying to think of the Newport bridges that I know. I only know of two. Is there more than two?
I think there's a couple more than two.
Yeah, you know what? There's 1, 2. It's like in the Skinny Canal area too.
Exactly,
I don't go through that because my boat can only go one way.
Even on the kayak, you got to take all your rods down and get through it.
Yeah. So with bridges, there's a picture of one in Mission Bay. There's 5 to 6 bridges. Sammy says, "Man, I don't know that place well enough."
Yeah, there's several. Lido Island, somebody wrote, and then getting onto Balboa because you can drive out to Balboa as well.
Balboa, yeah, that's where the ferry goes out of Balboa, right?
Yeah, and then heading back towards like all the Restaurant Row, that whole area back there. There's another big bridge back there, or two. I guess that's the Lido.
Bridges for me can hold fish. There's limited amount of fishing at these things right here. Usually have maybe in Mission Bay, we've probably got 12 pylons on a bridge. What I would recommend on these bridges, if it's a ripping tide, especially in Mission Bay, if it's an outgoing or incoming tide, if the tide is ripping, these are like the narrow portion of the bay. So the water's going through there like a river. If you're lucky, you cast on the opposite side the tide's going past, and there'll be a fish down there. I never sleep on bridges. I always drop on all the pylons, hoping to get lucky in there. Bridges can hold fish, but more importantly, when I show on this picture is this right over here. You guys don't have a lot of this up there, but we have this riprap banks all down here in San Diego. And this right here is a unicorn. You've got not only a riprap bank, but see this tree casting the shade right here? Anytime you have any type of shade, any type of structure that is near grass, which is right over here to the right, when it's full sun, cast in these shady spots. If you're a largemouth guy, you all know this. When you're at a lake and there's a tree and there's shade and there's some kind of structure in that shade, that's an awesome spot for a bass. Translates right into the spotty world too. You see shade, see structure, you see rock, make sure you cast into that shade.
So funny shade story real quick. At iCast every year, they have the big pond out in the front, and they call it iCast on the water. Yeah. All the bait manufacturers, rod manufacturers, kayakers, everybody can do all their different stuff before the show. But it's always sunny, and it's like 1,000,000 degrees in Florida in July. And there's a couple palm trees, and those palm trees cast a foot-wide shadow out into the water. And if you can actually work into or through those shadow lines, you're usually going to get bit.
You think of anything, a human, a horse, a cow, anything. When it's full sun out, where do you want to be? You want to be in the shade. And if there's one shady spot, the fish are no different. They don't want to be sitting in full sun. They migrate on over that shade. So don't sleep on it. Back to bridges though. How are your feelings with bridges? You have more experience up north with the northern bridges.
I do. Yeah, we've got lots of good bridges up north here. I'm same. I'll be quick on those. Alamitos has a couple of really good bridges with a lot of pilings on them, and those can actually hold on the right tide. But I'll usually vertical drop on those on each of the pilings, but I'll make a couple long casts along them as well, usually with the A-rig. And those can definitely hold some fish. A lot of those pilings will go down, and then there'll be a solid cement base at the base of that thing. So when you're dropping down close to it, you might think you hit the bottom, but you might have to move off a couple feet and then be able to drop like another 5 or 6 feet on those. And a lot of times that's where those fish are going to hunker down, is even that further deeper spot.
Some of those bridges, especially in Alamitos, have this gigantic, gross moss, clear moss thing they grow. And it grows especially in the summer, it grows out to be about 3 feet out. and if you try to cast directly on the side of that pylon and you're throwing an A-rig like Dave here, you pull that up, that's like a 10-minute ordeal getting all that motion out of there. So cast about 5 feet out your first cast and then try to get in as close as you can. But there's a gigantic mess waiting for you on the side of those things,
That stuff
especially.
is pretty nasty.
Yeah. There's another picture of shade I wanted to show. This is probably one of the most famous spots in Mission Bay. This is right where the sky ride from SeaWorld comes down. Everybody knows this spot right here, but look for that shade. Don't be afraid. So if you look at that riprap, it comes down at an angle, and that angle translates all the way underwater till it hits the sand. So follow that angle and don't be afraid to try to get as close as you can to the bottom of that riprap, because those fish will hide in the rocks. And if you can find out where the toe of that riprap hits the sand, does that look right? Hits the sand, and you can cast right in front of that riprap, especially like an angle like this, there's a good chance. I guess in Alamitos, you guys have a little bit of riprap kind of by where the boat launch area is, kind of coming in by the bridges and stuff right there. I'm trying to think of riprap in up where you guys are at.
There's a little bit. I mean, if you get into, and if they let you go fish the Marine Stadium area, there's some rocks all along that whole area. If you go back into the channel, there's some riprap areas there too. But just like you talked about, that translates into like fishing the Long Beach break wall. Is that wall isn't just straight down when you get near the water. It continues out, and it could be 20 yards from the actual wall that's out of the water.
When you talk about that marine ski area, am I correct on this? You can fish that as long as there's not an event going on and it's in the morning. I've heard different rules on that. It's kind of a gray area.
We don't really gray area, and it's who the officer is working that day. Usually they'll just warn you and tell you to leave. I
don't see a lot of spotty bowlers in there, and I've never really had a lot of luck in there. But if I would fish there, it's usually first thing in the morning before anybody's even out there.
Yeah, you don't want those guys speeding around you, but there is a good spot we used to fish from the boat, which is all the way back as far as you can go in there. There's like some inlet pipes or something that's coming in there, and that little area used to be really good.
Sammy Prim says, this is what I thought, and I've heard before 8 a.m. you can fish in there. So that's prime time hours right there. So, before 8 a.m. Nobody's out there before then. Pleasure boats. We got multiple people saying. Jesse says open till 8 a.m. I think 8 a.m. So yeah,
it's in writing. We can't go wrong now.
David Guzzi, who would definitely know, he's up there every day, says before 8 a.m. Then after 8 a.m. shore only. Okay, guys, check on those rules. I'm not exactly sure. It's kind of a gray area. Next up, this is what I recommend. You go get yourself a fishing cat. I have a fishing cat that I go around with, and my cat can sniff out. I've trained him, Dave, to sniff out spotties, and he'll actually look in a direction and give me a wink. And that's the whole reason I've won these 5 championships, is because of my fishing cat. Do you have a fishing cat yet?
I don't have a fishing cat. I've got 2 fishing dogs. They're both next to me over here. But that's, if you can train those things right, that's the way to go.
I wish that was a true story, but unfortunately I don't have that cat anymore. But I was trying to train a fishing cat, but
we saw your other cat walking out at the beginning of the show, so he's ready.
My cat's usually sitting right next to me, but I tried to train a fishing cat, and let me tell you guys, first of all, they don't like the ride down there, and the second of all, you get them on that boat and they're not very happy, and that cat is not fishing. That cat's scared for its life right there. It's sitting on top of my head on that. All right, Dave, I'm going to exit this. And you guys have any more questions right now? Cat number 24. I haven't had that many cats, Salty. Maybe 10. I don't know. I live in a spot backed up to a forest. That's all, guys. If you guys have any questions for Dave, you got Dave from Okuma on here right now. If you have any Okuma questions, shoot them out right now. Like I said, I fished the Okuma Hook High. I had 2 of those. I fished them the entire last season. Give them a thumbs up. Had no problems with them. Excellent drag, lightweight. This year, I'm going to be fishing the Okuma X series, so I'm excited about that. First thing I telling Dave I noticed about this is the spool is super light, so it's perfect for slow pitch jigging. Check that reel out. And then this is the reel that you guys will have the opportunity to win right now. What's this reel again? Inspira?
That's the Inspira. Yep, ISX.
Yeah, so that's what Okuma's donating for you guys, and those will be given out to the Spotty Bowl champions again.
I'm just looking at your belts behind you there, and I'm just imagining how good you would do if you had the handle on the right side of those baitcast reels.
So, obviously, you're a right-handed fisherman.
Right.
I talked to Brett. He's also right-handed. Why do you want to switch hands? That's what I'm saying.
I'm just born and raised as a switcher, although I can go both. I can go right or left hand on that, so it's not a problem. But just always switch, and that little fraction of time can make a difference, I guess. But haven't had an issue.
I started out like fishing spinning reels, and they're usually always left. I don't see many right. You fish your spinning reel left, right?
I switch everything to the right side.
Everything. Okay. Well, the common, I think, which is weird, a lot of people fish their spinning reel left and their bait casters right. I see that a lot. Salty Danger says left is right. You got it. Here we go. Now we're going to start this again 2 weeks in a row. The reason I like left is I'm not switching hands. So a lot of the time I'm pitching things, and it's that fraction of a second. And my right hand is so much more dominant for the hook set that I want all my power in my right hand. So I'm not quite sure. 9 out of 10 professional anglers are left.
You know what's funny is so we obviously make right and left-handed. By the way, we make right and left-handed reels for everybody, but like in the Pacific Northwest, it's majority left-handed. So like all the trolling reels and everything else up there.
Trolling, huh?
Yeah, it's crazy. Like all of our low-profile reels, probably like 60-40 left-hand up there.
What is it for the SoCal? Or I don't know if you keep those. Or how are you on left or rights? I'm assuming it's like
majority right hand down here on the bass, like on the actual bass circuit. So if we're going to the classic, it's like 50-50 on that, but more so on the bass or moving to the left side, just because of that. You don't have to switch it on that cast.
If I fish right-handed, it looks like my very first day of fishing. I can't even, it looks, I don't know. I cannot do anything. Kevin, I went tuna fishing, and all they had was right-handed reels. And because all I have is bass gear. And I showed up and I was like, what am I going to do if I catch into a tuna and I got to fish with my left? I was nervous, but thank God somebody had a spinning reel. I was able to switch and I used that, but I cannot fish right. I'm jealous. You know what? I was telling Brett, I said, we need to fish a tournament where, because he can't fish left. He fishes left, I'll fish right, and let's see what happens.
There you go.
A little side bet. Everybody has to switch. Everybody has to switch for the day. Judge, that would be a good WTF tournament. He does these team tournaments where we fish like kid caster poles and all these little wacky like tournaments. That'd be a good one. You have to fish the opposite. Salty Dangler says, VC59, have you tried the Fish Lab guides? Yeah, let's talk about Fish Lab's guides or hard swim baits for spotties. Glides, I mean.
I have not. So the new hard swim bait's actually going to be arriving here. The one that just won for the ICAST Saltwater Award. So that one's going to arrive here in the next week or so, and then those will be starting to hit the market. I know some guys do fish the glides, and they have been successful in those fairly shallow, kind of like the photo that's in the background there, where you got 4 feet of water above that grass. There's a couple spots in Newport that are very similar to that too. I've got to go just do it on the off, like non-tournament day. Just go play around with it. I know I like to fish the jerk baits in that kind of water as well, that just stop and hover. You know, that's always going to work out well. But if you can get that glide to get that subtle left and right motion in there with the paws, you'd probably do pretty well.
My son is a big glide bait fisherman, and he'll get spotties on those things. But
yeah,
you gotta be patient with those. Don't expect it to be like a slow pitch or something like that, where you're just you got to be patient with them. And it's an art. You see them doing that little flip, that little subtle. They get them to turn around, and they get the head to come back, and don't just give it like a 10 minutes. It's not gonna catch anything. You gotta take your time. You gotta learn how to finesse those things. Remember, they're slow sinkers too, right? So you have to let it slowly sink and get it to your depth and work it around. But I'm talking from very little experience, but from watching people and fish for spotties with those. I'm always intrigued, but I'm always too impatient. I just can't. I'm always in tournament mode. I feel like I'm always trying to catch power fishing, cast retrieve, cast retrieve, cast retrieve. I just can't get it in my head. Same with a drop shot. I can't fish a drop shot anymore because it's just in the Ned rig. Don't even get me started on that. I don't even think about Ned rigs. But
yeah, notice how I didn't mention that any of those techniques.
Let's not bring the Ned riggers out of the woodworks here on us, Dave. They're brutal.
Here go the chat.
I'm gonna get beat up on the water next time I go out.
So I do want to answer a question that came up from Chris 2393. He says he's got a Guide Select Pro with cork that came unglued. What's the cost to get it replaced? Shoot me an email, Dave@okumafishingusa.com, and I'll get it taken care of for you.
Well, there you go. You got an inside line. How can they get a hold of you, by the way? I'm sorry if you just gave that up.
That's right. Yeah. Dave, DAVE at okumafishingusa.com. So OKUMA, the word fishing, then USA.com. Piece of cake.
Piece of cake. All right. You ready for this? We're going to go ahead, and me and Dave are going to go ahead and do this, and we're going right to PB shoutouts. So here we go, Dave. Get ready here. I got to do some of my production stuff here.
We've seen you out on the water. They say you fishing harder. I guess we'll find out this week on our PB Shoutout!
If you didn't know, that is Cal up front, double fisting. What's up, Cal? Look at all those spotty bowlers and everybody. Anybody that's ever sent me a PB shout out, I try to get them on this thumbnail. Send me a few PB shout outs. I'll add you to this thumbnail. If you want to be on PB shout outs, you need to direct message me. Brian likes to fish on Instagram. I prefer Discord if you're on one of our Discords. Judge, if you're in chat, put a link to our Discord, Spotty Bowl Discord, into Discord. Send me a message. Send me a picture. Could be an old picture. Could be a new picture. Doesn't have to be a PB. Could just be anything you're proud of or a bait you started fishing. Just send me a picture. We'll get you on PB shoutouts. First one up. Let's see what we got here today. Do you know this guy? This is Ken the Fishing Fool. He's up in your area. Yeah, so, okay, that's Ken the Fishing Fool. He says he was at Los Alamitos when he hit this on a white spinnerbait. Weren't you just talking about spinnerbaits?
And white. That's kind of like my go-to color on any of those things, too. That's perfect.
Giving it up here, guys. She felt bigger than she was because she was caught in a ton of grass. I hate that, but that's a big one right there. But it was still a fun fight. I was losing a Tatula 7.6 medium heavy rod with a Tatula 100 size reel, 30-pound braid, 25-pound floral leader. This is my best spotty year I've ever had. All right, let me tell you what this guy's accomplished this year, Dave. He has caught a 4.2 pounder, a 3.7, a 3.4 pounder, and a bunch of 2 pounders. He says it's been a great year. I'm so thankful for this year. I know I'll never duplicate this season ever again. Man, have you broke the 4-pound barrier?
No, that's big fish. That's awesome.
I've probably caught a million, and I've never broke the 4-pound barrier. So to do that, Ken, I mean, you got a 4.2. You think of it this way, Ken. 4.15 is a world record. You were really close. And he sent that 4.2 in for PB shoutouts a while back. So held it up on a scale, legitimate. This guy right here, 3.7. That is a big one too. That is a big one. 3.7. To catch the 2 3s and a 4 in 1 year, Ken, congratulations. That's an amazing
Awesome.
year.
Great job.
Next up, we got this guy right here. I think he's in chat right now. That's Josh Sanchez. He says, hey, Brian, PB submission. He caught his very first spotty ever on a submission fishing jig last month. There it is right there. Congratulations. I learned from Sammy how to slow pitch while we were in Mexico. Sammy, I don't know if you watched last week on PB Shout, sent some pictures to a destination wedding, and it was in Puerto Vallarta. And guess what? The hotel was giving out free kayaks for the day. So him and a bunch of his buddies went on slow pitch out in front of the hotels right there. And
awesome.
Scooped up a ton of fish. He says, this was my first Saturday back when Newport Harbor, and decided to tie on a sumo and hit the docks. I got 4 or 5 catches in a row. Whoa. Newport in the winter, 4 in a row, 5 in a row. Wow.
It can happen like that. It's one of those ones where when you get on those fish, they just keep going. And then then all of a sudden you built all this confidence and you can't go wrong.
And then it's 4 or 5 and then 3 hours of nothing.
Yeah, exactly. I know they're there.
Yeah. So that is awesome. 5 catches. So you got a full bag and 5 casts, full bag. Well, congratulations on that. That's a nice fish too. Next up, we got this guy, Samuel, 2 weeks in a row. He says, hey, Brian, I caught this Sandy in the Carlsbad Lagoon on a 7-foot Shimano Carbon Max spinning rod with a Shimano 3000 reel, 10-pound floral. I was drop shotting a no-name bait plastic and casting the incoming current. I felt a bite with seconds, hit the bottom. It instantly took me for a ride. This was my 3rd time hooking into something that instantly takes off. Yeah, so especially when there's current and they can take off with the strong current. Man, it's like to get them back up that current from the shore. Sometimes you got your hands full there. I've lost 2, so I was very cautious and patient about the fight. How are you on that?
I get a little impatient.
Once a fish is pulling drag, you know what I mean? Like you're not used to. Sometimes you kick it. You know, we're used to catching a fish and spotties in like maybe a minute battle, maybe 2 minutes if it's big. But when you catch like a 6-pound calico or a big sand bass and actually pulling drag for a while, do you get impatient and pull the spotty move and you're just reeling it, your drag's just stuck?
I do get impatient, but you can definitely tell when it's either a sizable fish or something else.
I go largemouth fishing with the owner of Cool Baits, and he's a largemouth guy. I'm a spotty guy. And one thing I notice about spotty guys is even if it's pulling drag, we're still winding. Because the fight's so quick, we don't stop. It's pulling drags. The line's going one way, but we're still reeling. It don't matter. We're just trying to get that thing in as fast as possible. But the largemouth guys, they just hold the reel. They're not winding. They let it pull drag. They let it wear out, and then they'll gain a little line and they let it wear out. So I
try not to let it jump.
I drive those guys nuts when I'm out there. Like, what are you doing? What's going on in here? Why are you reeling? Okay, he says bass was ducking into the rocks, and I kept tension, pulling it every time. It gave me a little chance. The fight took about 7 minutes. Wow, that's forever in the saltwater bass world. Majority of it looked like I was snagged into something, but finally pulled it out. My PB barbed sand bass was pushing 14 inches, pretty solid from the lagoon. After that fish, I didn't land anymore, but I was pretty content with getting my PB. Yeah, congratulations on that.
That's awesome. Yeah, good job.
Nice fish. I didn't know there was sand bass in the Carlsbad Lagoon. Next up, we got this guy, Captain Adobo. You can send me in a picture with a mask on, but guess what? I got a whole plethora of pictures I can pull up. So don't think you're getting out of not getting your face on it. So Captain Adobo, he's a certified slayer now. I mean, he's probably my prediction to win Spotty Bowl in San Diego this year. He's due. He's the Masters guy. He's made it like second place like multiple times. Always makes it to the playoffs. He wants to choke me, let me tell you, Dave, because I've beat him a few times. And last year I beat him Angler of the Year by 1/4 inch. So the entire year, right? You get Angler of the Year, whoever gets the most inches for that season. And he had it all the way up to the last round, and then I beat him by 1/4 inch.
Nice.
Yeah, make sure he's not behind me.
Yeah, geez.
Sorry about that, Adobo. Adobo says, fishing with Peter 86 in Mission Bay with the Shore Pounder Bass Kicker Summer event. I was throwing a 1-ounce war blade, hoping for a toad calico or sandy when I got his first white sea bass. Wow. So it looks like he's fishing. Yeah, white sea bass are pretty rare in Mission Bay. White sea bass, good fight. Kept trying to keep him out of the rocks. Keep my eye on Peter just in case he wanted to push me in the water since we were actually both competing against each other. That is a nice fish right there, Adobo.
That is a nice fish. That's awesome.
There it is on the bump board. Dang, it looks bigger on the bump board than when he's holding it. 23 incher. That's a big one. He caught it on a Penn Fathom 200 low profile, 12-pound line. Copolymer. He caught it on an I-rod, 7'9" Pose Magic Stick. Too bad I couldn't use this because it was a white sea bass, and the submission in that contest it was 23.25. He did not weigh it, but he released it safely. He chased some schools of bonito. Hey, that's a mini A-rig. Have you tried the mini A-rig yet?
I like the mini. I go full size, but I like the minis.
I tried the minis too, but I'm the same with you. I use full size to get a little more weight on it. Went back to the next morning, tried to get some bonito from the Shore Pounder Species Challenge, and got a double bonito, another white baby sea bass on the micro. So the white sea bass might be coming into Mission Bay. That's interesting news right there. Next up, we got this guy. That's Drake King. I think that's Corey. Is that your nephew? I think that's Corey's nephew, maybe. Drake King. He says he caught this fish. It was on a kite, and it was on a seeker rod with an Advent reel. I don't know what exactly won. I was on the Pacific Queen, and the fight was a long fight and tons of running around the boat. It weighed 120 pounds. Wow. Have you caught any of the big tunas in your time?
I have. Yeah, I got a 155 this year. I got a 235. If you ever come by the Okuma office, we've got the tree of tails out front. We've got all of the tails from all of our big tuna pinned to this tree. I'll send you a picture for PB shoutouts next week.
Please. And what was your experience with a 235-pound tuna, which I've never even came close to?
It was fun. It was on the kite as well.
I'm sorry. You're the only one that's ever said that. It was fun.
It was fun. I had a good time. It took about an hour to take that thing in there. one trip around the XL, and we got it up. It was on a Makaira 30.
Okay, so you were rigged up ready for that
I was
sucker then.
rigged up, ready to go. This year I got a 155, and it was 4 a.m. I walk outside. There's nobody really fishing. There's one dude in the corner that happens to be hooked up. So I'm like, I get my contacts are all jacked up, and I walk out and I grab my rod and I just drop down. Justin, the captain, he yells down. He says, "Hey, I'm seeing some fish about 400 feet." So I drop down. I get down in my spool, and there's a little bit of a wind knot. So I pick out the wind knot. I take 2 cranks. Also, it just starts taking off. Jam it into gear. I'm not even awake. I think I got 1 shoe on, and ended up getting that fish in. It was a nice fish. It was fun.
120 pound. The story was I had 5 different trips and I've caught about 10 tuna, but I've never caught one over 100 pounds since I was 12. And when we finally went up there for the big ones, and his name was called first to use the kite. That's cool. That is pretty cool. Well, congratulations, 120 pounder.
That is awesome. Yeah. Anytime you break that triple digit, man, that's great.
Yeah.
Did you see that 452 this year that somebody caught, the yellowfin?
No.
So this was just a couple of weeks back. We went down to go. They're going to certify it and try to get it through the IGFA as the new world record. But the thing was big. Never seen a fish like that.
Was it off our waters?
It was on the XL. They were on a 10-day trip. They were down somewhere around the ridge, and it was on a chunk bait.
No kidding, a chunk bait, huh?
Yeah, it was. If it certifies out, it'll be the new world record. I think it was just huge.
Send me a picture of that too for people.
I will.
If you don't know who that is Dave Rage right there. Dave, you didn't send me a picture, so I got to put a picture up so people know who you are. Dave Rage says, "This first pic is of the first fish I caught on my original kayak at a Carlsbad Lagoon, January 2020. I think this is his very first spotty he ever caught. So we're reminiscing here. And that's when the obsession began. Anybody that's into like spotted bay bass fishing, it's just same with the largemouth guys, same with anything. We're very obsessed with our little fish. And the cool thing about, I think, spotted bay bass is the whole industry is geared towards largemouth. But guess what? All of that largemouth gear translates right into spotty fishing perfectly. So we have a very good selection of baits. If it wasn't for largemouth guys, oh man, I don't know where we'd be. But that largemouth industry pushes them to make better baits, sell more baits, and I just love that all that just translates. The reels, the gear, the line, all of that translates right into the spotty world. Because I'm sure, Dave, when you guys had designed that X reel, it wasn't for spotties, was it?
It wasn't for spotties. That was definitely not the what we were going for.
That's the wrong answer. If you know that these guys would have loved you if you said, "Yeah, that's the official. We designed that specifically
for spotted bay bass out of Southern California and all the harbor fishermen."
That's right. We all put in our 2 cents, and that's this official spotty reel. But anyway, that we're lucky we have that largemouth industry to push it. I joined Spotty Bowl. This is my first ever submitted. Oh, he's got a second picture here. That's his very first Spotty Bowl fish he ever submitted. And he says he's ready to go for the 2025 season. And that 10.5 inch, that's not too bad for your very first Spotty Bowl fish. Let's critique his picture here. Looks perfect. Mouth shut. Eyeball not covered. No ends of the gill. Flared. Looks like you got your tail stretched out good. Good picture there, Dave. And that's that. You know how we know that's the beginning of Spotty Bowl season? Look at his thumb. It's like mint condition right there.
It's clean. There's no tape on it or anything else.
All right, here we go. We got a picture right here. If you don't know who that is Colt. What's up, Colt? Hope you're watching right now. He says, my son's PB largemouth. Ryan sent this in from, I think he's in chat right now. Ryan sent this in. He says, this is my son's PB largemouth. We were fishing Canyon Lake from shore. You ever fish Canyon Lake?
Oh, yeah.
Is that a private lake?
It is yeah, you have to have somebody have to be a member to let you in there.
That's why I've never fished up there. But yeah, I hear good things about that lake. Hooked into this monster, weighed 5 pounds. We were fishing a drop shot around some trees. Who would have guessed? Shade. Using a Z-Man craw. Who would have guessed? Oh, and my son fought it like a champ. He couldn't believe how big it was. My son is only 4 years old. Okay, 4 years old, and you've already caught a 5-pound bass. Holy smokes, Colt. Congratulations on that. I'm going to give him a round of applause on that.
That's awesome. Good job, buddy.
Almost as wide as you are, Colt. That thing's huge.
It just gets easier too. So good job.
And these guys are giving you a secret. See what we were talking about earlier? shade. I bet that thing was sitting right there in the shade. Looks like it's a sunset bite. And he says, okay, and here we go. He also caught an MDR. He caught his PB spotty. And yes, he did catch it on the kids caster pole. That's even. Have you ever been in a kid caster tournament?
I have not.
Let me tell you,
They've done the ice rod tournaments.
Yeah, but those will have a spinning reel on them, right?
Yeah, true.
This has that weird button.
Yeah, push button spin cast.
It's the hardest thing you've ever casted in your life, is that, because it's only a 2-foot rod.
Yeah.
Cast terrible. The drag is super unpredictable. So if you can catch your PB spotty on that, Colt, when your dad gets you a real big rod, you're gonna be slaying it. All right,
So
next up.
That was MDR.
Yes, it was.
Let's what's the name of that boat? I want to get that spot real quick.
It's a sailboat with a cover over it with a maroon sail. All right. Last up, I want to show you guys I went fishing this week. I don't know if anybody fished this week, but holy mackerel, what a king tide. That's Shelter Island. The boat launch was almost completely to the top. I have been fishing a long time and I've never seen the water that high down there, guys. It was insane. And this is it, almost up to our fire pits. If you know that beach, you're like, that is mega high tide, king tide. And this is when I was leaving. It was a 9-foot tide swing, Dave. Have you ever fished a 9-footer?
That's pretty high. It's like the opposite of your Newport pictures there a little bit ago.
9-foot tide swing, but guys, the fishing was medium. I think I got about 11 spotties and 5 were legals. So
it's almost too much movement.
It is, because all that junk is like ripping through there. But when you have days like that, find some wide areas, or maybe go back into the back of some area. But I thought when I posted, I was like, I don't know what this is going to be like. I don't know if you're going to be able to catch a fish in this, but it was still able to catch fish in a 9-foot tide swing. And there you go, me fishing my X Series rod. Guess what, guys? I got stickers for the show. If you guys want one of those, direct message me your address, and I'll send you a show sticker. Just had them all made up. That's a terrible picture. And I was watching Price is Right the other day. I always like to throw in this. They're giving away this on Price is Right. Do you ever watch 1980s Price is Right or 1970s?
Yeah.
You do that too? I'm not the only one. I saw this. I was like, wow. Back in I think this was 79, you could get a 3-wheeler with chopper bars for $399.
It's crazy.
And with that, I'm going to exit my PB shout outs here, Dave. There we go. Well, Dave, I want to thank you. I forgot to ask this. This is something I've been asking. I asked Brett this last week. I'm going to ask you, because this is, I think, one of the ways we get to know actually who Dave is in Southern California. What is your taco shop order? Let's finish the show on this question, unless you guys have a quick question for him.
So yeah, two options really. So I'll either go with a carne asada taco with just simple with cheese and pico de gallo, or I'll go in order of tachos, which are going to be tater tot nachos.
Oh, wow.
Which is, you can also do it with the carne asada and then just all your regular nacho toppings. There's a place right up in the corner here by my house that makes some pretty phenomenal taco shop style food.
Nacho tots. I've had that at the Kobe swap meet in San Diego. They serve those. And
it's really good for you too. So.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. It'll put you right to sleep.
Exactly.
But they make a killer tater tot nacho down here. And also the Rock and Docks fishing. I don't know if you've ever gone down to that down here. There's a guy that sells specifically tots, like homemade. Like I don't know if he like grinds them or whatever, but he makes the tots fresh. And then he does a carne asada. Oh my God.
Nice.
5 years later, me and my son are still talking about that.
Awesome.
I'm with you, dude. That's awesome. Disneyland has those too. I don't know if you know, seasonal food. Anyway, Dave, anything you'd like to share? Let these guys know. I know you have a YouTube channel. You want to share that with them first of all?
I do. My YouTube channel is Davy's World Fishing. It's just something fun. Have a good time out there. A lot of it's bay bass stuff. I think I just posted a video about that shark tournament from Texas last week. One thing I did want to talk about is I know a lot of you guys are members of CCA. A lot of you guys were winners from this year's Star Tournament. That's going to be kicking off here again this year. If you guys haven't done that, it's a really cool event. You have a chance to win an 18-foot Parker. And all you have to do is catch qualifying fish. You don't have to be the biggest fish or catch the most fish or anything else. On the bass side, you only have to catch an 18-inch fish. So calico bass or sand bass are most likely where it's going to get you your entry. And I know as I'm looking through the chat here, a lot of these guys were in that tournament this year. In fact, I think a couple of the guys had like 150 entries into the into the
smart.
tournament, which was pretty cool. But the guy that actually won the boat had one entry.
Oh my! Isn't that the way it always goes? It's the
It
guy. The
was.
guy. Some people go out there and buy 100 lottery tickets, and it's always the guy that just bought the one.
It's crazy. Yeah, Chet won. He won a. Did you win a bike, Chet? Was it the electric bike? I won the Newport motor for the kayak.
You won too?
I did.
Oh, congratulations on that.
It was fun.
Awesome.
I did 10
Wait a
grand
second.
prizes, but keep an eye out for that tournament. That's a fun one. I happen to be the chairman of that event this year for CCA California, so I think we'll be announcing all that stuff here right at the turn of the new year.
Did you guys do the raffle or the awards given live on YouTube or live online?
They did, yeah. Chris and Tony, they did that live on YouTube.
And was it Tom and Cash that had a bunch of entries and they were like up for the grand prize at the end? I think I was cheering for them. Like, come on, guys.
They did. I want to say Cash won a Hobie kayak, and I think his dad won. Was it the Alaska trip, maybe, or something like that?
Yeah, I watched that live. I sat here and watched that live. Yeah, because a lot of the people like Chet and Tom and Cash and all of them, I was cheering for those guys to win. Well, that's awesome. So once again, how do you sign up for that?
It's going to be at ccacalifornia.org. I don't think it's up there yet. I think right after the new year, that'll go in, but it's like $40, and there's several different qualifying fish. I qualified with mine with a halibut this year, but we added striped bass in there as well, and lingcod are going to be in there as well. So it's not just kayakers or boaters. It's everybody fishing, and you only have to catch qualifying fish. And, of course, all that goes to CCA. So great cause, keeps us all on the water.
This chat is very familiar with CCA. They have their Apps and Taps banquet down here, and we go down there as a group, and there's usually 20 strong. We have the biggest tables down there, so you're talking to the right group here.
For sure.
Dave, thank you so much for spending your evening with us. We do appreciate all your knowledge. Looking forward to seeing you up on the water during Spotty Bowl. I really appreciate you coming on the show with that, Dave. Thanks, and have a good night.
Thanks for having me, guys. Appreciate it. See you all soon.
Thank you. All right, round of applause for Dave. Thank you, Dave. And it's just great that we have such a tight fishing community where I get people like Dave on here live. But we're going to go ahead and close this out. Thank you, everybody.